Hi and welcome to episode 9 of the Average Gamer podcast. I'm Joe Chip, and with me tonight I have Sully from One Guy's Opinion and Grant from Over the Edge. And tonight we're going to be talking about game saves and game save mechanics, what makes a game a classic, and Sony's juggernaut. And the first thing we're going to be talking about is game save mechanics. So take it away, Grant.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I was just thinking recently about how different video games treat the save game mechanic, in terms of what freedoms or restrictions they put on the player. Because obviously you've got lots of different approaches to this. You've got some games which literally let you save anywhere. I think what made me think of it was I was playing Fallout 4 recently, and literally the game seems to want to save every couple of minutes. Even if you're just looking at a wall or not particularly doing anything, it's like, oh, I better save the game, because something interesting might happen. Yeah, right. But you've got that extreme where, you can literally save round every corner, I think is how some people like to refer to it. So, they abuse that system.
It's my kind of style.
Yeah, so that
yeah, me too.
So, if you're like partway through a mission, you can literally just like do these several incremental saves. And then of course you've got the opposite end where games like the Soul series basically only let you save at particular points, and they're normally like a mechanic. For instance, in the Dark Souls series, is you have to save at bonfires, or in Bloodborne you save in the Hunter's Dream area, and you have to earn the right to save in those sort of games. I think that's kind of the approach that they're taking, is that save shouldn't be abused. It's up to the player to unlock shortcuts and then actually earn the right to save that game, rather than have a system where they can save and potentially abuse the save mechanic by reducing the inherent danger in and the suspense, because you're not, the possibility of you failing is reduced, I guess, because if you can just save all the times. So I wonder what you guys thought was the best way of or the best save system that you've encountered in a game, and do you think games have made it too easy for people or players to save, and it's taken away the kind of challenge or suspense in a game?
I definitely think they've obviously made it easier, and I think we've all probably gotten used to it as well. I've been playing Wolfenstein at the moment, which is, it's not challenging by any stretch of the imagination.
The New Order, the new one.
The New Order, the one that came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it just follows a traditional save, or a now traditional save system where, you progress, 5 minutes, autosave, progress 5 minutes, autosave. And I'll find myself, I might get caught up and I'll die. And I'm like, oh my God, please let the autosave have caught me. Because I'm just lazy. I just want to keep plowing through the story. I don't want to have to repeat the previous section. And I think we've all just become accustomed to that. We don't want to have to backtrack or go out of our way or be challenged in that kind of sense with replaying through an area that we've already done. I think it's just, I'm gonna call it lazy. I'm not sure if that's the right way to coin it, but that's just my take on it anyway.
I quite like the checkpoint saves, but I think that they have to be done right, and there's two ways they can be done wrong. And the first one is what you just talked about, that it makes it too easy for you. The flip side of that is sometimes you'll get a checkpoint in the wrong place. So, for instance, you'll have a situation where you've got virtually no health, and then you're coming on a boss, and it's just literally saved just before then, and then you're buggered. So you've got no chance of winning that part of that game. So you have to go back and play that whole level again if you can. The other thing as well is, I don't know if you guys remember in the old days with something like Tomb Raider, you'd get the things like the unforeseen death or whatever, where you'd suddenly be walking along and then you just suddenly fall off a cliff.
All the time in Tomb Raider.
Yeah. So auto saves would have been quite helpful there,
Sorry, Joe. Just another little side note was, I think it's obviously, I think, genre specific depending on how they tackle the save state, and even probably further back in the day would be platform specific as well. Because I was having a conversation with a friend at work the other day about how he had a friend who had this theory regarding an arcade game that was ported to the Nintendo 64, and I think it was NBA or some kind of basketball game. And he used to play it in the arcades, And obviously the arcades are geared to, they're extremely challenging because they want your money, essentially. You know, they want to fail you and you offer them like a penny or something, you know, and you play again, you have another go. And he got it on Nintendo 64 like years later. And he said it was ported over, but the save system and the progression system, it never changed from what it was like in the arcades. And he actually ended up getting to this wall and point in the game, which he thought and believed was just unbeatable. Like, he just could not get past this level, and he'd repeat it dozens and dozens of times, and he couldn't beat this level. So it's just interesting to throw into contrast like the different progression systems and save states and all that between platforms and genres. But
I guess there's a few things that come to mind. I mean, one, you mentioning Wolfenstein was interesting because I don't know how far you are into the game, because you're saying it's not particularly challenging. I would say wait till the latter half of the game, because it gets more difficult, and you'll be. What I found with that game was early on I was thinking, oh, the checkpoint system in this game is generous.
Yeah, generous.
And yet in the latter half of the game I was thinking, why do I have to do this bloody section again? You know, because there's levels where they throw so many enemies at you. You're thinking, oh, I can just get to here, I can unlock that checkpoint. And you know how some games have where you hit this invisible kind of section. It's like Call of Duty. You hit this invisible part of the level and suddenly you've hit another checkpoint, but it's not obvious. You know, you've hit that particular point, and Wolfenstein's a bit like that. Another thing that came to mind was this idea that I read someone put this forward recently, which was some people haven't got much time to play games nowadays. So if you're going to give them a game where the save system is particularly punishing, then it kind of discounts them from being able to sort of take an active part in playing it.
Yeah, I won't play a game if I, you know, you were saying about Neo earlier on Discord. If I started playing Neo, I would stop and I wouldn't go back, because I'd just get fed up with it, because I simply haven't got the time to put into it.
Well, that's what I found with Dark Souls. Like, I think I started playing Dark Souls 3. That was my first. I had played a little bit of Bloodborne before that, but that was my first real step into a Dark Souls kind of series of games. And I actually found like everyone carries on about how hard the bosses are and how challenging the bosses are. And I remember I beat the first couple of bosses, and yes, they were challenging, but they were satisfying at the same time. But what I found the most annoying was I was just trying to go through, like, after this boss area, I was going through like this castle area, and there was like the skeletons and a couple of other demons and stuff like that. And I honestly don't know how far I was from a checkpoint or a bonfire, but I kept getting killed by these skeletons. And every single time I'd reset back to after that boss fight where it autosaves, and I'd have to go through this castle again, and the skeletons all placed exactly the same, nothing's changed.
Yeah, they're all reset, yeah.
And I just got fucking tired of running through this castle, trying to get out the other end, and like, I felt like I was grinding through it, and I don't know how far I was away, but they just kept chipping my health down slowly. And yes, each time I would progress further, but it felt like a rinse and repeat trial and error thing, and I was just like, no, I can't do this. I'm just over this.
It's a genre of game. People don't talk about it as a genre, but it is a genre of game, and it is called Games for Masochists. and basically, if you're a masochist, if you like to be punished, go and play those games, because I find them. One of my best mates is absolutely addicted to those kind of games. He thinks they're brilliant. I told you, Grant, about, you know, he platinumed Bloodborne, and he will be all over Neo. But for me, he loves it. He'll sit there and he'll play it all day when because he's a teacher. He has the summer off, and he'll kill all his back catalogue in the summer, and he will sit there all day and play something like Neo or something like Bloodborne. And I cannot do it. I remember trying. He got me into playing Ninja Gaiden some years ago.
My God!
I just got fed up of it. It's just tedium. It's because it's doing the same thing over and over and over again. And as I say, I know a lot of people love that in games, and it is challenging, and there is some, you do feel like you've achieved something when you get through it. But for me, it's just I just can't do it. It's like someone sticking pins in my eyes, to be honest.
Well, to be fair, I sit in somewhere between the two. I understand both points of view, because I like Bloodborne. I haven't played a lot of the Souls games, but what I would say in response to what you said, Sully, was the idea behind the Souls games is that you get a little bit further each time because you learn the patterns of attacks. You learn, and also there's this idea you unlock shortcuts. So, You don't have to keep going. You don't have to actually fight all the enemies in the Souls games. That if you're trying to get to an objective, you can run past them, and a lot of people forget that you don't actually, once you've unlocked the shortcuts, you don't actually have to fight everything. But the idea of fighting a lot of enemies is to learn their attack patterns. Sometimes you'll walk into a room in a Souls game, you'll get ambushed because that's part of what Joe calls their sadistic nature of people. They just like to just mess you up, but then the next time you go in there, you'll know that there's something there. You'll know there's something hiding behind the corner. Yeah. But I understand the pros and the cons of these sort of games, but one of the interesting things that it sort of raised was this idea that is the difficulty level of a game, and its save state, are they sort of interdependent? Because I think a game's difficulty can sometimes artificially prolong its length, when it's not otherwise a particularly long game. Because I've heard people talk about
I agree.
Neo being 80 hours long, and I think that's partly because it takes you so long to learn the mechanics of the bosses and defeating them.
That you throw in a feature like autosave, and then how will that affect the game length?
It's that, exactly. If there was an autosave, like it would change the nature of the game. I think it wouldn't be that sort of game if you could just like go around a corner and then save, like you could in Fallout, or it would almost be a totally different game altogether. I think, and I think you could argue that it might only be 30 hours of content in Neo, but it's actually going to take you 80 hours because you've got to learn how to defeat these enemies. I had a situation where I was playing the game where it took me 20 attempts to defeat the first boss, and the second boss came. I literally one-shotted in about 10 seconds, and I thought, well, this is a totally contrasting experience, It's like, and it might be partly because I've learned the mechanics of the game better, but it took me X amount of hours to get there, and that's partly because of the save system. But also it's this other big part of the game, which is learning how it works. And I'm just wondering if there's a happy medium in terms of saving games between these sort of two ideas, because there seems to be like one extreme idea in the Dark Souls series, and like Fallout is almost like the opposite end, isn't it?
Save where you want. If there is like a best of both worlds, like I completely understand Dark Souls and the reasoning behind how they handle their autosave systems, and I definitely agree with my experience with Dark Souls 3. I'd completely agree with the way you summed it up about, trial and error and learning. It's just not my thing. That's why I didn't like it.
Yeah, but that's fine. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there are games that do. I don't think we necessarily think about it these days. Like, I think if a game gets it right, we don't think about how the autosave system is being handled.
That's a good point, actually. We take it for granted, don't we? Because if you've got a checkpoint... I mean, most games have a checkpoint system. I'm just thinking of a game like The Last of Us. It's like you hit a checkpoint, you hit you hit sort of points where you progress the story, or...
Yeah, like it's based on the story. Yeah, see, that's the kind of checkpointing that I think I agree with and what I like, and it feels probably natural. Like, it's like completing a chapter of the book, and you can put your bookmark in, and then you put your book down, you go to sleep.
Yes.
I kind of agree with that kind of checkpointing.
I like that. Yeah.
Of course, the other thing in PC gaming, and I think the save anywhere thing comes more from PC gaming than console.
It does,
gaming.
Yeah.
I've been playing Black Mesa, which is the kind of remake of the original Half-Life, and you can save anywhere on that. But the flip side of that is that you can save anywhere, but if you get sucked into the game and you're playing along, you forget to save. And there are auto-saves as well. Yeah. But you get through quite a long bit, you've not auto-saved, it's not auto-saved, and you've forgotten to save, and then you have to go right back along, because you've forgotten because you've been so engrossed in what you've been doing.
Absolutely.
So that can be quite frustrating as well. So, you're never going to get a perfect save system,
no.
I don't think. And to sort of contradict what I said earlier, I think I've not played a lot of Bloodborne, but I actually thought the saves in Bloodborne were quite well done with, the pyres or the fires.
The lamps, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think that no matter what they do with saves, there's always going to be an issue. And I remember, do you remember the original Dead Rising? And I think the first save point, it may not have been the first save point, but you had to say, you went into the toilet and you had to save in the toilet. Which was quite amusing, but the problem is you go running through a whole horde of zombies to get to the toilet, and if you're a bit low on health, you can't get to the save point.
I just need to go to the loo, get out of the way, zombies.
But yeah, going back to the save systems, about what you guys said about is there a perfect system? Yeah, I don't know if there is a perfect system, because every game is different and they want different things, and one system might be perfect for someone else, whereas not perfect for the other kind of gamer, and I don't think there ever will be a perfect save system.
No, and I think probably that's not really the right question to ask, but I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said what is the right system for that particular game, and I think, like you said, it only sticks out when it's either completely wrong or really unfair. So I think, it's like what works best for that game, and if it works really well, like you say, you tend to not notice it, which is a good thing. It's like the referee in football. If he's having a good game, no one notices him. If he's making a load of mistakes, everyone's shouting at him.
Crucify him.
Yeah.
A good game save should be like a good controller system, a good control mechanism. You shouldn't notice it once you're playing.
Yes. Yeah. Good point.
Okay, well, thank you, Grant, for that one. And that's the end of the first part of this podcast, and we'll be moving on to the next one. So thanks for listening, and tune into the next bit.